Dillian Whyte versus Alexander Povetkin, the rematch. Going to ask you straight out, repeat or revenge next week?
I think Dillian Whyte will beat him this time. I think he had the beating of him last time. And at heavyweight, you can always walk into one of them, big shots. But I think if Dillian boxes smart, he was boxing smart last time, and he had Povetkin down. He never even rushed in on Povetkin before. I think he was biding his time behind the jab. It's one of them things, Povetkin slips, bang, it was over. That happens in heavyweight boxing. But I think Dillian can do it. He boxes smart, gets his jab working, gets his feet moving side to side. He's definitely got the beating of him, and I really hope that he comes through because I've got a lot of time for Dillian.
You'll be living on a boat for a week, a luxury yacht. I'm sure that's not the first luxury yacht you've been on, Tony, but you looking forward to
that? I might stay on my own yacht that's next door to it. Nah. Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah, it's on a boat, which is strange, isn't it? But you never know what you're doing in Matchroom. Everything's strange, really. But I suppose it'll be staying at Wembley. Not that I'm saying it's bad here in the Hilton, but I think I've done it too many times in here now. So it'd be a nice change.
Saying to some of my colleagues last night, that's the only sport, boxing, where fighting in Gibraltar and living on a boat is just kind of par for the course now, particularly with kind of COVID. Everybody just kind of gets on with it. Final thing, of course, the last week or so has been dominated by AJ Fury talk. The fight is apparently signed, albeit with no date, no venue yet. Just your thoughts on the announcement or the latest news regarding the fight?
Yeah, I think we all knew that fight was eventually going to get made. Obviously, we've now heard that they've signed contracts. So, it's a mega fight, and it's a mega fight not just on a British scene, but on a world scene. But we're fortunate to have two British fighters that are going to contest the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world. Funny enough, I've worked both their corners, so I know both of them, which is strange. But yeah, like as a fan, I'll be looking forward to the fight. I think it's a 50-50 fight. Either one of them are capable of beating the other. It's whoever comes out on the day gets their tactics right. And, see they've signed 2 fight deals, so you're going to get the 2 fights this year, and I think they'll both be great fights.
Now, we've seen Anthony Joshua out in December, albeit there's no date yet, but I mean the rumours that have been kind of circulating, all the quotes that we've seen is hopefully sometime this summer. On Tyson Fury's end, if that does indeed happen, it will be around 18 months since he boxed against Deontay Wilder. Speaking to your old charge, former IBF World Middleweight Champion Darren Barker, he was talking about the importance of activity, particularly going into a huge fight like that. Issue for Tyson Fury, potentially?
It's not good to be out of the ring, but Tyson Fury is like a naturally gifted fighter, and we all know what Tyson Fury done. He didn't box for 3 years or something, and come out of exile, of a mental illness, come back from that, and then we see what he done. The 2 fights before the Wilder fight, we never see anything in them 2 fights to think that he would do what he done with Deontay Wilder, and then beat him convincingly in the return fight. So Fury, he's a natural fighter. He's got a fighter's brain on him. He's very clever. He's very hard to hit. And, he's very versatile. He always finds a way to win. And that's the dangerous part of him, is that whatever the opponent brings, he can always find a way. And that's what makes him such a good fighter. But obviously in Joshua, I know very well, Joshua is a machine. He trains like a machine. He punches harder than Wilder as well. And he's a bigger man than Wilder. And he's a smarter boxer than Wilder. So you've got a different kettle of fish in front of you there. And, it's all making up to be a great, great fight. It's a 50-50 fight. No one can definitely say one man wins, no, the other, whatever man wins, So it's a very hard fight to call, really.
It's a 50-50 fight. It's a hard fight to call, but as you mentioned, there's only one person that I know who's worked both corners, so you know where this is going, Tony. Who wins, Tyson Fury or Anthony Joshua? No fencing. You're not usually a fencer.
As I say, I can't call the fight. No, I'm not sitting on the fence either, because my mind goes over, like, I think of, like, I think of Fury's lacklustre performances sometimes, you know, where he's looked poor, you know, like Walling done well against him. Remember the Steve Cunningham fight when he put him down, like, you remember them sort of performances, and then you try to think of bad performances that Joshua's had. He ain't really had any apart from the Ruiz fight, and that's recent, you know, so you look at the Ruiz fight now. I heard Joshua's never made any excuses for that fight, but I heard he wasn't well before that fight, you know, and if he wasn't well, that might be a reason why he put in such a subpar performance that night. Who knows? But you know, your mind goes back, as I say, back to the bad performances of Fury, goes back to a bad performance against Ruiz. But look at their good performances. Look at that last performance from Fury against Wilder. You know, it probably outweighs massively the performance that Joshua had against Ruiz, because even though Joshua beat Ruiz in that fight, you wouldn't say he convincingly beat Ruiz in that fight. You know, he looked better against Pulev, but the Ruiz fight is still a bit of a shaky fight for Joshua, whether the styles didn't clash, you know, whether the styles weren't meshing with him for Ruiz's style against Joshua. But, yeah, I don't know. You just keep going back and forth thinking who can come be victorious in this fight. It's a really, really hard one to call, especially at the moment. When he gets nearer to the fight, you might, you know, you're watching the build-up, you're watching the training, you know, you might start swaying to one towards the other. But at the moment, I can't sway either way. I'm completely split down the middle who's going to win.
Do you think it's fair to say that if the fight does happen next, considering Anthony Joshua last boxed against Pulev, that's more to his favour than if Tyson Fury has, for example, Wilder Fury 3 or boxes Carlos Takam or somebody like that to shake off that ring rust?
Yeah, of course. I mean, activity. Every fighter wants to be active, you know. Like, I've got Felix Cash fighting against Denzel Bentley in April. Now, Denzel had 3 fights last year. Felix has had 1 fight. I'd like to have had Felix had the 3 fights and Denzel had 1 fight, but that's what boxing's like, do you know what I mean? So, you know, Felix ain't managed to get the fights in that he'd want to have, but come fight night, it don't really matter, because as long as you've done your training in the gym, you're sparring, you're prepared properly, if you're a better fighter than the opponent, then that's all that's going to matter after round 1. That's all it, you know, comes down to. And if, you know, the activity, as you say, that Fury's had outside the ring, the inactivity Fury's had outside the ring, it ain't going to matter once they get in there and get the first round out of the way. You know, what matters is who's a better fighter on the night. You know, who's done the training right, preparation right, who's mentally focused. You know, and at the moment, you know, it's a toss-up at the minute who's going to win.